Part of the challenge of understanding the election security threat is that it is so incredibly complex. When we talk about election security in its purest sense, really what we're talking about is anything that interferes with the ability of a citizen to vote and for their vote to be properly recorded and reported back. Apart from core election security issues is the broader question of information operations. Now, information operations certainly impact the broader context in which we make decisions about our elected leaders, but they are a relatively distinct question from pure election infrastructure security. It's tempting to want to talk about these two topics as if they are the same thing, all part of election security generally. One of the problems, though, is that the challenges and solutions are really quite different and sometimes pretty dramatically at odds. Oftentimes people talk about the threat of someone hacking into a voting machine and actually changing votes. Now, that might be possible as a technical matter, but you wouldn't just have to target an individual voting terminal. You'd have to target thousands and thousands of different voting terminals, all running different software in different locations, and you'd have to pick the right locations in advance. Additionally, and this is the tricky part, you have to do all of that without getting caught. And that doesn't just mean evading forensic detection, it also means evading the detection of US and allied intelligence communities. So while this is a threat that we absolutely need to take seriously, it really isn't something that should be keeping people up at night. That's the good news. The bad news is that US adversaries don't necessarily care about changing election outcomes. They have a far easier goal in mind, and that is to generally undermine confidence in the democratic process. In order to do that, you don't actually have to successfully change votes. You only have to penetrate systems in such a way that experts aren't able to say that they have a high degree of confidence in the integrity of that result. If you can cause Americans to question whether or not they have properly selected their leaders, that is itself a successful assault on liberal democracy. The US Constitution includes something called the Elections Clause. And the Elections Clause says that states, and not the federal government, are allowed to determine the time, place, and manner of an election. However, it also says that the federal government, Congress, can override any of those regulations. Because of that, we have a strong cultural tradition of federalism surrounding elections. Anytime states perceive the federal government as overstepping, they're likely to push back very hard. But that is ultimately a cultural and not a constitutional or legal constraint. Faced with the kind of adversary and the kind of immediate and ongoing threat that we currently face, we should expect Congress to step up and perform the function that the Constitution assigns to it. The threat to the midterms is real and ongoing. But when the adversary's goal is to undermine confidence in the US electoral system, we have to be careful about how we talk about this threat. If we convince the American people that their elections do not have integrity, essentially what we're doing is accomplishing the bad guy's goal for them.